Okay, we're still crossing pea plants here using a dihybrid cross, but they've changed up the genotypes on us here. So before we get into anything else, let's make sure we have our legend down and we know what all of our symbols are going to mean. We have capital Y standing for the yellow color in peas. We have lowercase y standing for green. And then for the shape, we have big R for spherical peas and little r for wrinkly peas. And they tell us we have a parent plant that's homozygous recessive for both traits. So mom is recessive for color, little y, and recessive for shape, little r, and the other parent is heterozygous for both, meaning big Y, that'll make them yellow, and big R, that'll make them wrinkled. And we must do a Punnett graph that will give us all the possible offspring from these two. Now, I'll start with a giant. Oh, sorry. Get the color switch there. I'll start with, I am sorry, not that kind of square, this kind of square. Okay. This is our default shape for a Punnett square, but do you see why? You've seen me do Punnett squares that were unnecessarily big in some of our other examples, and it's going to happen again here. How many different gametes can we get from this parent? Remember that they have to pass on one Y and one R. Well, the only Y they can possibly pass on is a little y, and the only R they can possibly pass on is a little r. So this is the only gamete they're capable of producing. And that means little y, little r. We actually don't need any of these other rows. There's not a lot of variety coming out of this pea plant. Everything it passes on is going to be little y, little r. The other way to see that is if I did FOIL on this thing, my first would be little y, little r. Sorry, little y, little r. My outside would be the same. My inside would be little y, little r. And my last would be little y, little r. So that's the exhaustive way of showing that there's only one possible sperm cell or egg or pollen or spore that can come out of this plant. Here we get good stuff. Here we get more variety, and we actually have to do FOIL. First would give me big Y, big R. That's one possible gamete. Outside gives me big Y, little r. Inside gives me little y, big R. And last gives me little y, little r. So if we have those down, we can work through and find all the offspring. We get big Y, big R, little r. So because they gave these with the Y's before the R's, I'm keeping that order all the time. It's always Y's before R's, and when you have a pair, you always put the dominant before the recessive if you have one of each. So if you're consistent about that, it just keeps everything neat and makes it easier to read. Here we get big Y, and then we get little r, little y, big R, little r, and finally little y, little r. Now, those are the genotypes. What do they actually mean in terms of plant? Big Y here means yellow, and big R means round. Here big Y means yellow. There are no big R's, only little r's, so this one is wrinkled. Here little y's mean green, and big R means round. And here we have little y for green, and little r's mean wrinkled. So, genotypes, there they are. Each of these is one fourth or 25%. of the total. And if you want phenotypes, it would be 25% yellow round, 25% yellow wrinkled, 25% green round, 25% green wrinkled.